Started.
Start making your way to seat. Go ahead and start in about 30 seconds. You can be your seat. Thank you very much. All right. Two seats. We're going to call the meeting order.
You can decide. I think you'll be.
All right. I call this meeting to order at 8:08 p.m. We'll begin with our first attendance roll call. When you hear your name called, please indicate you're present. Starting Senator RBC. Here. Senator Allred. Here. Senator Beardsley. Here. Senator Cannon. President Senator Cho. Here. Senator Representative Miguel. Here. Senator Bolshani. Not present. Senator Maccaro. Here. Senator Maimon. Senator Maimon, not present. Senator Mendez. Here. Senator Nunez Rivera. Here. Senator Rodarte. Not present. Senator Santos. Here. Senator Scott. Not present. Senator Solomon. Here. Senator Sankovic. Not present. Senator Reading. Here. Senator Dadan. Here. Senator Tai. Here. Senator Schwinn. Here. Senator Reading. Here. And then Senator Bolshani and Senator Scott. All right, we're going to go ahead and start with recognition of owned land. The ASUC recognizes that UC Berkeley sits on the territory of Houston, the original landscape of the Chicano-speaking Ohlone people, the successor to the sovereign Rosamond Ohlone. This region continues to be of great importance to the Wekma Ohlone tribe and other familial descendants of the Burundians. We recognize that every member of the Berkeley community continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land since the institution's founding in 1860. Consistent with our values of community, inclusion, and diversity, we have a responsibility to acknowledge and make visible the diversity of the relationship community. As members of the Berkeley community, it is vitally important that we not only recognize the history of the land on which we stand, but also we recognize that the Wekma Ohlone people are alive and flourishing members of the Berkeley and broader Bay Area today. All right, are there any motions on the floor for the agenda before we enter? Yes, Senator Maccaro. You just say it.
I move to amend the agenda to add Andrew Garcia as like.
Senator Maccaro moves to add a announcement for elections council. Or sorry, what was it? An appointment of Andrew Garcia to elections council. What was the position? Campaign liaison position. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Bolshani. Any objections? Seeing hearing none, the agenda will be amended to reflect that. Any other motions on the floor?
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Senator Tai moves to approve the agenda as amended. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Solomon. Any objections? All right, seeing hearing none, the agenda has been approved as amended. And our first item on the agenda today is our session with the Chancellor and his cabinet. Before we get started with this, I'd just like to go through the evening and some tensions. So the ASUC student body leadership would like to center our meeting with the Chancellor today around dialogue and transparency. And rather than a rigid Q&A structure that was routine in prior years, we hope that this semester's meeting can serve as a tonal shift that brings our conversation back. Each of our group's role as advocates and equal-footed stakeholders for our student population, for the achievements and spirit of our university, the #1 public school in the world. And the goal of this session is not to make adversaries of one another, but rather to learn from each other and synthesize solutions to address key and pressing concerns raised by the student body. So we'll go ahead and get started. For a little bit of context, the way this evening will be structured is we'll have the Chancellor give a report on 2 different issue areas. After each report, the ASUC official will have some time to ask any follow-up questions for about 10 minutes each. And then we'll go ahead into our live Q&A session at the end. And if you'd like to ask a question for the audience Q&A session, you can submit it using this QR code during the session. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started, and we'll start with a report from Chancellor Lyons.
Thank you, Keisha, and thanks to all of you for being here, for inviting us here. I've got the senior team here as well. I also want to thank everybody that was able to make it on Monday night. That was just a delight to be able to connect with you in a little bit more comfortable environment, and it was great to be able to talk and get to know you. So hopefully we can keep that going as well. So the advocacy and the questions that you brought to the table are fundamental. There's no question about that. Your presence today and your passion that you bring to ASUC, our governance here, is testament to your deep commitment to this campus. There's a long tradition of that. Berkeley is a place where we can and we must engage in dialogue about the most complex issues, which is why we're here. What a goal. A goal is to move forward together here in as constructive a spirit as possible, which is part of what we heard from Keisha. True freedom of expression isn't just about the right to speak. It is about ensuring that our students and our staff and our faculty are able to exercise that right without fear. And that's important. I appreciate your dedication to holding this institution, our institution, to its highest ideals, and I look forward to discussing how we can support every voice in our community. Now, I would like to address the questions you submitted in advance of that. There are various elements of the freedom of speech and student protections that I'd like to touch on first. There are a number of other questions that we can and will get to, as Isha mentioned, but let me speak first to questions relating to freedom of speech and student protections. First, our multicultural center, the MCC. The MCC, as most of you know, reopened on February 13th. We had heard from the ASUC and many other students that the MCC's limited availability has adversely affected your sense of connection, visibility, and belonging. Reopening the community space, the MCC in particular, is and was important to the student experience in campus climate. I do hear the ASUC's concern with the well-being of our MCC interns that was represented in your questions. I do want to be very clear, no student should ever feel unsafe on this campus, and we do everything we can to deliver on it. The MCC staff has been a wonderful partner through this process and has been focused on what we all want, which is an open and highly functioning multicultural center. So first, we are ensuring MCC practices align with university policies and with the MCC's own mission statement. I think that's critical. I want to underscore that with the MCC's own mission statement, which emphasizes cross-cultural understanding and also the provision of, quote, a welcoming and inclusive space for all students. Second, we are implementing new structures to protect staff and interns at the MCC from harassment so that they are able to execute their important mission and work of creating a welcoming and inclusive space without interruption. Turning Point USA was a related set of concerns and questions. The Turning Point USA event took place on November 10th. As we previously conveyed to the ASUC in the fall, as a public university, UC Berkeley has a non-discretionary obligation to abide by the First Amendment of the Constitution and related laws that protect free expression. For numerous court rulings, there have been many, we must allow and enable our registered student organizations to host speakers of their choice, regardless of their perspectives and beliefs. The courts have also made clear that, generally speaking, concern about the expenditures and operational disruptions that may be necessary for security cannot be used as a reason to cancel or not permit a given speaker to participate in a campus event. Doing so would amount to what is sometimes referred to as the heckler veto, which is a form of impermissible censorship that occurs when a government or public institution silences a speaker because of the anticipated or actual hostile reaction of opponents. The goal of UCPD, our police department, is to ensure a safe environment for our entire campus community and for those attending events on our campus. Given the assassination of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University in September of 2025, UCPD judged it necessary to provide additional security for the Turning Point USA event. In order to do what we reasonably can to minimize the likelihood of violence, and that is our goal, or property damage, uphold our values regarding free speech and meet our legal obligation, the campus relies on the professional security assessment, the expertise, and the recommendations provided by UCPD, so that events sponsored by our student organizations can be held successfully and safely. I'd like to turn to the trust factor. Many of your questions related to that. Related to free speech, you asked about a particular disciplinary case. For California law, we cannot talk about confidential personnel issues. We can, however, address the general issues you raised, which I will, and we can speak more about it if you have further questions. When working within university policies and standards, Berkeley faculty have unrestricted freedom to teach, publish, discuss, and discover as per their academic interests and expertise. That freedom extends to even the most controversial ideas and inherently protects faculty from any kind of institutional censorship or interference. Never, and I mean never, will we see at Berkeley what we have seen lately elsewhere across this country, namely faculty being disciplined, even fired, for teaching and discussing the very subjects at the heart of their syllabi. In the same vein, academic freedom also includes and protects the ability of students to freely learn, study, and discuss and explore ideas and perspectives without fear, without interference or censorship. Simply put, Berkeley could not be Berkeley without academic freedom. There is, however, an important difference between, for example, the ability of a faculty member to freely deliver without interference a syllabus and course material about the economics of housing construction in California, on the one hand, and on the other hand, the ability of a faculty member to use her classroom to advocate for the election of a particular politician whose views about housing she happens to agree with. That difference becomes even more acute when that sort of political and or philosophical advocacy takes place in a class focused on an entirely unrelated academic subject. That is why University of California Regents Policy 2301 strictly prohibits using the classroom for political advocacy or indoctrination. It is a policy that implicitly recognizes the unique status, influence, and persuasive power held by faculty, especially in their classroom, and seeks to ensure those attributes are used solely for pedagogical purposes and not in support of political objectives or particular perspectives. The bottom line, academic freedom is not unlimited. I want to turn to federal demands and what's going on the federal administrative front. While there are continued these limits on what is in Berkeley's interest for me to say, communicate in public, I want to confirm and affirm that there are lines we will not cross. At the highest level, as your chancellor, I need to be committed to protecting our ability to provide long-term societal benefit through excellent research, teaching, and public service. So too will we do everything in our power to safeguard the values, practices, and degrees of freedom needed to fulfill that mission. The unfettered freedom to teach, learn, and discover, freedom of expression, opportunity, and access, and everything it takes to build a community where all can feel a true sense of belonging, and no one fears being excluded because of their beliefs or their identities. And so, a commitment from me to you is that I will not agree to provide voluntarily personally identifiable information about our students, faculty, staff, or alumni that is not otherwise publicly available. I want to convey and emphasize that we have in recent months clarified a number of issues with the UC Office of the President. Among them is that I, as Berkeley's Chancellor, have the ability to draw a line and not voluntarily comply with investigative demands for personally identifiable information about our students, faculty, staff, or alumni that is not otherwise publicly available. When legal obligation kicks in, decision rights are generally not mine. They rest with the University of California Regents and the University of California President. I want to segue now to Senate Bill 98. You did ask about that as well. As a public institution, we are also subject to state law. Senate Bill 98, as you know, requires California schools and higher education institutions to notify their communities when the presence of immigration enforcement has been confirmed on their campuses. Here at UC Berkeley, we continue our commitment to supporting our international and undocumented students and all students and campus community members being directly and indirectly impacted by immigration enforcement actions. Decisions about campus notifications under SB 98 are administrative decisions made by campus leadership. It is important to note that federal immigration enforcement is outside of the university's control. We cannot lawfully prevent federal officers from accessing public areas of campus or impede their activities. Campus will send out regular communications to the community to make people aware, as we have already, of our SB 98 protocol. Our protocol states the following. If federal immigration enforcement is confirmed on campus in a timely manner, we will issue an email notification providing information about the enforcement action and remind you of key campus contacts, guidance, and resources to support our community. We will work to verify any reported immigration enforcement activity as quickly as possible, but official confirmation may take some time, or in some cases, may not be achievable. The campus is unable to verify reported activity or determines that reported activity is not immigration enforcement. No email notification will be sent. I hope you can understand the importance of not falsely notifying and the importance of confirming the presence. I want to turn to our international students. You also asked about international academic student employees who are represented by the UAW. We are aware of the negotiations and continue to work with our system-wide labor relations office and our system-wide bargaining team through this process. We are actively monitoring UAW 4811 negotiations and coordinating with the UC Office of the President. This is managed at the UC Office of the President level. Turning to campus safety and racism. We, as you, are appalled by the recent anti-Black and racist incidents that have occurred. They are simply antithetical to our values and to our principles of community. We always respond quickly to incidents like these by removing graffiti as soon as possible, for example, usually within hours. Offer support to the students impacted and make every effort to identify those responsible in order to hold them accountable. In addition, we confirm that the incident has been reported to OPHD, our Office for the Prevention of Harassment and Discrimination. We also speak with parents, families that have questions and concerns when issues such as this occur. Equity and Inclusion in Student Affairs called a critical communications meeting on Friday evening, this last Friday, and agreed to work on a message to the impacted community. It was sent out yesterday, and many of you likely saw it. This message was also cascaded to our cabinet, the deans on campus, and other campus leaders, including the leadership of ASUC and the Graduate Center. This type of racism doesn't just impact those who bear witness, it ripples. So we are working directly with African American student development and the village to address direct support to our community members who have been impacted. We encourage anyone who has experienced or learned about alleged incidents of anti-Blackness, racism, or for that matter, any form of harassment or discrimination on our campus to report these incidents to OPHD so that the impacted parties can receive outreach and support, and so that the campus can work to identify those responsible and hold them accountable. OPHD emails every complainant with an invitation to meet and talk about what they need. If a member of the university community is engaging in race-based harassment or any harassment or discrimination on the basis of a protected identity, our policy and values call for accountability and appropriate consequences. Often we don't know who is engaging in the harmful conduct, or they are not university community members at all. So individual accountability is unfortunately not always an option. We always focus on providing support for those harmed and engagement and dialogue to reinforce our commitment to civil rights. Bottom line, we respond to bias, discrimination, and harassment incidents with immediate removal of harmful imagery and direct support for impacted communities. Now let me close this front end so that we can move to Q&A and other elements. I just want to double underscore here. We do have time for questions. We look forward to follow-up questions on anything that I've said or new topics. There were a number of topics in your earlier discussions: quality of student life, basic needs, restorative justice center, academic priorities, environmental sustainability. We can touch on this. I've got my senior team here, and many of them are managing the very portfolios that a lot of those questions fall under. So they will be helping me in addressing your good questions. So I'll turn it back to Isha.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chancellor Lyons, for that update. So at this time, what we'll be doing is if any ASUC officials have follow-up questions based on the report, now is the time to ask. So if you're an ASUC official and have a question, you can raise your hand and I'll recognize. Yeah, Senator Allright. Yes, thank you so much. Senator Allright is right there.
Thank you for your response. I have a follow-up question regarding the MCC. The MCC is historically and is a space where student voice and political expression is welcome. And you mentioned the importance of having an open and functioning MCC. Does the removal of these messages reconcile with that purpose? And like you stated, the alignment with the university policies, and what specific steps for allowing students to put their free expression back up will your cabinet be taking?
Yeah, thank you for that. It's an important question. Fab is here, Fabrizio Magia, and he is the head of our equity and inclusion division. He worked closely with the interns at the MCC on this.
Thank you for your question. So part of our emergency was to make sure the MCC with the original meetings. So that's first phase one. I think phase two, I know phase two is making sure that we're very clear on policies of what goes on those. What I've done over the last 2 years is that speech is looked at a little differently on university campus student halls. So anything that's on the walls is actually campus speech, student speech, not potentially from staff speech, just campus speech. And so we're bringing the NCC staff to help clarify, what that looks like, so that we can begin, agreeing to the sort of parameters of how they put out on the wall and things along the wall. So the idea is in the coming months, we'll begin to, refill the walls of our, activism that usually we have done on the walls. We have to make sure that the policies are crystal clear and like, and okay with all that.
This isn't necessarily the easiest thing to understand, but when there's a space that's actually operated by the campus, like interior review CC, it's possible to designate an area for free expression. And if an area for free expression is designated, then it's not edited. So anything that's not obscene can go up there, and it's not edited in any way. And that actually isn't the way that MCC has been managed in the past, it's really the way that it's intended to be managed in the future. It's intended that the professional staff actually exercise an editorial judgment with regard to what's written on the walls and what is not. There are places on campus that are completely free and anybody can put whatever they want on. The bulletin boards out in Scroll Plaza are in listed spaces, but the MCC walls. And so, what Chancellor is referring to is that our professional staff is undergoing, and they're discussing submitting those to come up with the policies and the standards that are projected and easily explainable, so that we'll be able to articulate clearly to the community, and really most importantly, the users of the MCC and the MCC professional staff will be able to articulate clearly what is the process for what goes up on the walls, what is the process for what comes down, and what are sort of the editorial standards that are being used by the professionals who are holding the concept of these walls.
Pathetic. Are there any other ASUC officials that have follow-up questions or would like to engage in further dialogue? Senator Missy?
Hello, I'm sure as you guys may know, we are running something for the state against the Islamic regime in for over 2 months now. And with recent military actions from the US and Israel, Iranian students are feeling very complex feelings right now. And I personally have had posters about me with misinformation and hateful messages spread on campus walls. And Iranian students have been receiving a lot of hateful, threatening messages on social media. You spoke about OPHD and how quick the administration is to hold those harassing students accountable. And you mentioned campus speech when it is on school walls. But on top of that, a professor has recently rejected Iranian students and you've excused absence for concern regarding their mental health right now. And while I know OPHD exists, and I also know though that they have not reached back out to me and it has been over 2 months since I submitted the report. So what is the administration actively doing about Iranian students and other communities facing this issue with not receiving responses from OPHD and still receiving hateful messages and harassments from other students on campus, and while also dealing with mental health concerns?
Thank you for that question. So, here at the not here, Senator Steve, yeah.
I'm ready to be heard.
I'll try to make OPHD, I have some for OPHD, but in terms of students in the academic, he's had to reach out directly to the student email. So these students experiencing issues that they, I don't want to say a combination of them. I'm very specific to needing resources, particularly when instructors impact. With the OPHD, these are nice as well, because we can partner and communicate and liaison with our colleagues in OPHD that will have issue. So 2 months is a long time. I know that they don't you know vaccines. So I would like to learn more about that and how we'll and we have to those students we work.
And we have time for one more comment or question. Oh, yeah, go.
So, in addition to, I agree with what you said, oftentimes we refer to that as supporting measures. And I think when things are going on, and it's going on, and I don't know, things that are supporting measures, it's not, but I know usually Oliver or others send out messages, it's such a portal as well. But, certainly, I think,
And then Senator Reading.
Hello, my name is Eden, I'm your LGBT messenger center, my name is Ethan Series. As transgender rights and healthcare increasingly across the country, especially by our current administration, what concrete commitments will we make to ensure our trans students' identities are respected and their access to gender affirming healthcare remains productive and conscious, especially with the teen insurance switch? And how will you ensure that our queer and trans students on campus feel safe and protected on this campus, even when speakers come to campus to lecture on community eradication? Thank you, Dr. Question. Steve,
Yeah, thank you for the question. What seems to be in is the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. And thank you again for inviting us into your space. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. We're currently looking at what are our fiat for a new ship provider for us. And one of the things that's really important to us is to make sure we have that gender affirming clear aspect of that contract. We also are making conversations with student clubs and organizations like QR to make sure that we have the support of the EHS from a domestic perspective, make sure that we can support students that have concerns around gender affirming care and other types of in that space. So this is for you. And
Okay.
one of the other things to know is, we met, maybe a few months ago with QR. And one of the things they brought up is, coordinator for our trans community in UHS. So, Corey Boo, the Associate Vice Chancellor of Health and Wellness, confirmed that he put, funding aside, that job description is in the middle of being, confirmed. And that should list soon for that support of the person within UHS. It's also a
And how will these things get communicated and how they come through?
yeah, I mean, we've got a variety of ways that we can communicate it. I mean, we can communicate, we meet periodically with QR. In fact, thank you for that specific example. That's I think a great example of how student leadership has created positive change on campus for not just that community, but all communities. But it doesn't matter. So we've got a very robust communication strategy within student affairs, UHS specifically, that we meet on a monthly basis with the HUC leaders. So we talk about it in those aspects as well. So there's multiple ways that we can get involved.
Then we have one more. Senator Reading is here. Thank you for the time we tonight and for your updated comments. I wanted to extend our discussion on that a little bit more. So you're just really committed to not voluntarily or personally identifying student empathy for the moment. That whose information is otherwise not publicly available. And as you mentioned, you don't have to emphasize your Chancellor. But can you clarify a little bit more on what you mean publicly accessible? Can this simply mean like your name on a syllabus or a name on our school membership or locality? And then my follow-up question to that is, if you as Chancellor don't have to comply, can you provide us a little bit more clarification as to how you determine which names to send to the federal registration license?
Well, that's true. I'm thinking about the base file, so some of those things, and that's necessary for you right now, was a different. So that was a legal obligation setting decision was made at the office of the president. So that's where the decision was, because it was a legal obligation. I did make the decision to know. I had the decision right on whether it's all Some people think I made the wrong decision. It still seems like a decision, but it was a decision that was made to make. David, I don't know whether you want to touch you, the first question, is that what you?
I can try. I'm sorry, I didn't identify myself before. I'm David Lyons, and I see a finance and chief. There are a lot of federal inquiries, investigations going on right now. We have a legislative inquiry going on from the same committee that the Chancellor testified for in Washington. It's a new congressional session where they carried over the investigation that they had in the last congressional session, against being the congressional session. The Department of Justice has opened a number of separate investigations into our campus on different topics, including two inquiries related to the turning appointment. So there are lots and lots of inquiries and investigations going on. I think that Chancellor was trying to make a general statement of values and principles, but with regard to the specifics about how it would be determined that the names of individuals would be disclosed in files or files would be produced that have personally identifiable information. It really depends on the nature of the investigation and the legal authority that the agency has to obtain information from the campus and the university's evaluation of whether the government is pretty much always claiming to have legal authority, but not always. So voluntary covers the situation, Chancellor used that word, where they aren't even asserting that they have legal authority, they're just asking for cooperation. And then in situations where the government is asserting that it has the right to information, there is an independent assessment that goes on at the university to determine whether the university agrees or disagree. And in situations where the university agrees that it has legal obligation to produce the information, the university attempts to negotiate to provide the information with personally identifiable information, including being redacted. And depending on the nature of the investigation, sometimes the government is amenable to doing that, at least at the initial stages, or sort of leaving the question to be considered in the later line. So it's very complicated. It's a very complicated topic. I think what the Chancellor was trying to do is express the values that he is applying in the decision that he has decision rights to make, but the decision themselves to be very specific. So the different investigation, what the authority of the agency is, and what their CC.
What about the work that was only used to unredact the list to identify information? Okay, go ahead. We have time for questions at the end. We need to move on to our next topic in the sake of time, which were some questions asked about the quality of student life on campus regarding access to spaces and resource centers and environmental sustainability. So same structure, the Chancellor will provide a report on these issue areas, and then there'll be time for follow-up questions, and then at the end, feel free to submit questions via the form.
So on quality of student life.
Workers are screaming at you outside.
As an undergraduate alum, the quality of student life is especially important to me. In our work on campus strategy, which the ASUC has, of course, contributed to, we've identified an equitable student experience as a key opportunity area, and there are a lot of exciting ideas in this area. A campus website, a strategy website will be announced soon, actually next week, with more opportunities for campus-wide engagement. Resources for campus space. One of the areas you asked about was resources for space and plans to expand student serving spaces in particular. So first, we are sharing widely the student life master plan to educate campus communities. It's an aspirational and long-term. It is aspirational, long-term, and good timing to review alongside the campus strategy work as we look out 10 years or so. One example of a recent addition is a yoga studio space in the Masonic building downtown. Some of you may have seen that. It has offered more practice space in that area. The campus is in the process of hiring an architect to study the possibilities for expanding our RSF In terms of services, the Berkeley Career Engagement Office serves students across campus and is housed within our Division of Student Affairs, well represented here. Generally, students are able to secure an appointment when we think about how long one needs to wait, which was a question area, within 1 to 2 weeks across all service areas. Most areas also offer same day or next day appointments, depending upon availability, and daily drop-in hours for students who need more immediate assistance. I understand that daily drop-in hours have been partially underutilized. To support student parents at Berkeley, there is a number of different programs in different spaces across campus. The Student Parent Center itself is part of our Division of Equity and Inclusion represented here. Many parents are transfer students, as you may know, independent students, and represent other various identities. We maintain a strong suite of resources for student parents that include our Student Parent Center, our Transfer Student Center, our Basic Needs Center, and others that you're familiar with. Earlier this month, I joined the Student Parent Center Transition Seminar, and it was a great opportunity for me to learn directly from student parents. Student parents talked about the need for earlier engagement with student resources support and the need to streamline access to benefits such as food assistance. Another story that I remember a number of them mentioning, some of them were graduate students, was as soon as they were no longer had student status, their residency in our student housing ended very abruptly. And for young families, that was a very difficult thing for them to manage on short order. The Student Parent Center and Basic Needs Center are working collaboratively to strengthen relevant social service coordination. And just a couple more quick points. Service expansion. Additionally, all the programs I mentioned intend to expand their services to better support students. So each has plans to pursue additional funding from various sources. Bottom line, in this area, we're expanding physical and digital resources, new yoga studios to streamline career advising to better support holistic student well-being. We can take some questions in that area.
Are there any follow-ups regarding any of the topics that some were submitted before Zoom Live? Starting with Trans Representative David.
Thank you for the mention of student parents. I specifically wanted to ask how things like childcare access will be alleviated by the university, specifically in University of Illinois, tied to things like commuter stipends. Something that is been attempted to be student led, but you know, limited time, especially being led by transfer, there's so much turnover. So I'm curious what systems will be set in place.
An important question. I don't know who's closest to this.
Josh, you want to read that, please? No.
So in regards to student parents, I'm curious how things like childcare access will sort of be alleviated by the university. For example, in University of Albany or even beyond that. And I guess there have been initiatives led by students. All of them have, I don't want to say all, but I would appreciate more streamlining services for the residents there and people that aren't in UVA.
And you mentioned the continuity on the student side, but
Right. I want to, well, I specifically go with when doing transfer student task force related to transfer students and transfer student parents in particular. We have expanded childcare services at UVA in terms of numbers, children how many down there. Our transfer student task force companies will look at the intersection of transfer students and transfer student parents. A lot of it is student driven, which I certainly appreciate. We're trying to build on the ideas that you students have.
I'll also add that there is, we need to do more, but there are things, as Steve mentioned, there's also the Seat Campus grant, which works with 250 lower income students with attendance and childcare specifically, provides a grant, but also advising on what options exist, because not everybody has a spot and can afford campus childcare, so we have to go to agencies out in the community. But it is a priority of mine. to help work with student leaders to figure out any ways in which we fund some of these things and get our models that we use Davis, where they have a broader at scale childcare grant. That seems to be around, so trying to take away from them and see if that's possible here in Oregon.
I'll just add, just add, so to what Claire said, we've been successful the last 2 years. In getting state grants related to childcare. Now, sometimes we don't end up receiving the dollars until a little bit later, but it's some issue. But we're gonna continue to pursue as many financial as we can to defend our rights, those childcare needs, of students.
Thank you. And then South Asian Ad Chair, Nancy Roll.
Hi, I'm Nancy. I represent the South Asian community here on campus. Our community is deeply saddened by the tragic loss of Saket Srinivasaya, an international student from India who was pursuing his master's degree in the Department of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering. I was wondering, what steps is the administration going to take to strengthen mental health resources and outreach to prevent their own students from falling through the cracks?
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Some wisdom, strategy. Any leaders. The student mental health is continues to be one of the top issues that has student performance. We have a studio model, we try to have counsel not only in the society, but also in colleges and schools. Student mental health is something that still continues to be a challenge for us in terms of students who file complaints. So, this is a great opportunity for us to work with you as student leaders. If there are things you think we could be doing, it'd be very important for us to hear that. And I need to reduce the waiting times for students that there's also students we've expanded the number of colleges that we have. They're using all the technology now for students and go online and they quick access to accountants like UHS console. So there's mechanisms of using the many campuses deployed, but they're of course so we love the program.
Just because that we can't say specifically to the students, but it doesn't decide for the campus. And that's true all the students. In addition to the services, which means for an acute crisis, we're also to look at the root causes. So look at is then the quality here at Blushing, culture to show that there are multiple factors that lead to even gangs of people getting to the state. So again, by Q&A session like this, we have better understanding and perception of what it comes from, what are your sensitive points. And then also we learned that peer support, I used to co-chair with shares of advisory committee all currently with the co-chairs. And one of the things that I learned is that the way that students utilize support on the campus is first go-to is a friend. Is a peer, it's one of you all to each other, so that we will know when the resources are available, the help of our community is going to be. And but the new model in the past 2 years, where it's not just about what you want to talk therapy, that doesn't work for everyone. Particularly students who are from different backgrounds, international students, where they're focused with mental health, and it's not the same as here in the US. And so taking that into account, we looked at all the different layers, the tiered model to raise up our overall student mental health.
And then student advocate students.
Thank you so much. Hi, Chancellor and President. I'm so proud that you guys are able to be here and answer student questions. Really appreciate it. I want to circle back to student parent issues in particular in regards to the campus grant. I know that the campus grant is authorized by the Higher Education Act and administered by the U.S. Department of Education. And in my capacity as student advocate, I've been in conversation with the director of the Financial Student Center as well as the Student Parent Center. I know there's been some concerns about the renewing of this campus grant in particular for this next administrative year, especially, or next academic year, I'm sorry, especially with federal cuts. And then, I also know that there's been some staffing issues with the student parents and as well with recent staffing cuts. And I'm just wondering if there's any sort of administrative, plan to help continue funding for the student parent center and all the CE3 centers, as well as just continuing, trying to support them with recent staffing cuts as well.
Thanks for the question. So, yeah, so the C campus grant that you're referring to is the federal grant. As you know, is when we got that, approach the last year. That is one, so many of the ways in which we got in the government programs limited, plus we were having a mixed model of funding. So some of that was federal grants, some of that was state money, some of that was campus, a lot of it was philanthropy, money on fundraising, work with foundations, endowments, et cetera, et cetera. So what we're trying to do is make sure that in this case, Student Parent Center has a more mixed model of funding. Namely, they haven't been as successful in fundraising. And so that's what we're putting our attention on, is making sure that we're shoring up things like C Campus, because it's likely that that will continue. But we can't count on the federal government right now. We don't know if it's housing or if it's granting. We have to be ready with the plan, which we have been for this year, ready to absorb whatever shock may come. We saw that in one of the programs of student affairs, working on outreach, some institutional partnerships, where they summarily got their way forward and had to shut down very quickly. So we're very sensitive to that, and we're trying to make sure that we're really full of money so that we can absorb whatever changes may happen. But it is a commitment to make sure that they are fundraising ready, and making sure that we're building a voice so that that important service does continue to work.
Thanks for restoring back. You know, a big part of my role is fundraising. We lot that need in my mind. So
My name is Selena, and I'm one of the Latina community and our senators. As UC Berkeley continues moving towards the Hispanic serving institution designation, how is UC Berkeley ensuring continuity and specific programs that contribute to student retention, such as the Latinx in the environment, research, faculty mentorship, and community engagement when long-standing staff positions tied to Latino students' academic success remain underfunded and left to our community and leaders of our campus to fundraise for these positions? Given that the loss of permanent Latinx faculty roles directly weakens mentorship pipelines and student belongings, how will your administration collaborate with academic personnel and the Division of Equity and Inclusion to stabilizing rural Latina serving faculty and staff appointments?
thank you. I think I'll tell you, one just quick macro is that we are as committed as the government to equity and inclusion the conference was taking very rapidly. But I just wanted to make sure to say that in
Thank you for the question, Tom. So one of the things that we, with you, I think we certainly have to expand, maintain what we have and expand where we need to. And I think we've gotten better in that area, to make sure that the patient fundraising and one source of funding is there. I'll also say when we met with the Latinx caucus, somebody was there and others as well, the BCSA, one of the things that came up was advocacy for child studies, and to your point, making sure that we're looking at where students are wanting faculty support and learning, like the active experience, etc. We brought the chair of the studies to that meeting because we wanted the advocacy to be reliable with the faculty and the chairs of the departments receive. What she updated us on was that things have changed significantly in the last year and a half, with more staff, more faculty coming on board and being able to do some hires. You know, is it going to work? Honestly, probably not, but they're not in the province, I think. So that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that we're sharing the right information so that the right advocacy points can happen, where they still want to happen in those areas. I don't know, do you anything down the faculty?
Sure, so we have been expanding the faculty, we take a lot of, in all areas, but we have certainly been, allocating slots to the ethnic studies program, the African American studies program, we've also been spending a lot of money to ensure that those faculty wants to hear, ready to thrive, and then if other universities steal them from us, so that we do what we can to keep them there. You know, there's still in retention here for a lot of metropolitan universities.
And then Senator Schmidt. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. I wanted to circle back on your discussion about physical space on campus. I'm a senator representing the international community, and the international office is currently located off campus on the 5th floor of the Chase Bank building. And as a consequence, the Berkeley International Office is currently paying hundreds of thousands of dollars every year for rent. And that is money that could have been spent on international student programming and for hiring more advisors to process visa documentation, especially at a time when international students are facing direct federal crackdown. We are experiencing long wait time to have our visa documentations processed, and also very limited programming by the international office. So how is your cabinet going to align your financial commitment as well as physical space allocation to support international students?
Mark, I think that's closest to you, although it's this is a hard one.
So top of mind for me is, I may have an option that we can study. I have to understand the lease on the building during today. But we may have an option within space that's currently occupied in my portfolio. So I'm certainly willing to explore it. I just wrote it out to myself because I've been trying to think who might be a good person who's willing to share a space that we control. So I will certainly look into it, and thank you.
Senator Yang, sorry, Senator Schmidt, do you want to respond?
Yeah, how could I contact you after this meeting so that we could continue communicating about this?
So easy to find. It's Mark, M-A-R-C, Fisher, F-I-S-H-E-R, at berkeley.edu. And so just email me directly.
But could you repeat that? I'm so sorry.
It's Mark, M-A-R-C, Fisher, F-I-S-H-E-R, at berkeley.edu.
Thank you.
And then Senator Yang.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Judah. I represent the disabled student community on campus. So with the rapid increase in undergraduate and graduate students enrolling in DSP, our community thinks that it's really important to have spaces and funding be accessible as possible. And so this past November, our community and students were notified that the UC Regents had an $8 million funding, which UC Berkeley receives $1.5 million of that funding being exhausted in this spring. This will impact DSP's programs across the UC. However, this spring there also is a report with basically funding also being allocated with DSP and disabled student program resources encompassing that. So my two questions kind of are, how is campus leadership and your cabinet with going to work with UCOP, UC Regents, and especially disabled student voices to ensure transparency around Berkeley's portion of this funding being allocated? Additionally, what concrete steps is the administration taking to ensure that critical programming supporting disabled students, such as the Disability Equipment Community Center, TRIO programs, and instruction connects, are protected all in basic compliance and therefore serves the community and culture of disabled students and Berkeley's history with the disabled human rights movement. And finally, while also ensuring that necessary accessibility infrastructure and overdue ADA improvement or remediation projects are adequately funded to not only mitigate institutional liability, but first and foremost protect students.
Thank you. Oliver O'Reilly, oversees undergraduate education.
So thank you so much for this question. And I was a part of it, and then DSP reports to Fabrizio, and you can ask 71. So with regards to the funding, the one-time state funding and the one-time funding from, so the state funding is 1.5 million every year. And then it's divided by 10 for each campuses, so it's 150,000 every year. It does not cover the cost of ESP specialists, it comes nowhere near that for any campuses. There's additional one-time funding that was split between UCOP and the campuses. That funding is going to run out. So you, Calvin Tang and Natalia and UCSA have been advocating for a $20 million fund from the state, and they have deserved great applause for this because they've actually succeeded in getting a state senator to actually sponsor this bill. So this is 20 million, and thank you so much. I don't know if Calvin's here tonight. Oh, my Calvin. So that's going to be great, and that's going to feel part of it. I completely bring this up repeatedly and obviously president at every meeting we have, that the state funding model discriminates against students with disabilities because it disadvantages campuses that have enrolled students with disabilities, particularly those who need reduced support of accommodation. That message is that they are tired of hearing, but I was not tired listening to myself talk about this because I think it's really, really important. On the positive side, Berkeley is a proud home of the disabled students and movements. And the Chancellor and Provost have made significant commitments to improving resources for disabled students and also to provide additional support for faculty. And that's part of a new initiative that coming out of the Provost and Chancellor's office called First Instance. So two pieces of one big piece of that, there's small pieces. Piece of that is accessibility and accommodation. So the first thing is we're working to improve the amount of support we can give instructors by increasing the amount of testing facilities that are available, which will make life for students easier. We're also opening a new testing facility at Moffat Library in the fall. And in terms of student spaces, I know all of you have missed Moffat Library. I think it's like the heartbeat of the campus. That will be open then in the fall. There's lots of student space there. And at the very bottom of that, like down the bowels, like this bitch with like hell here, but it's not hell. There's wonderful testing center that all of you will do well in and have fantastic exams that you will remember for the rest of your lives. That will be there. It's 100 seats. And it's first, what I hope will be many testing centers across campus that will help all of you. On the accessibility side, we are working with the research, teaching and learning, is working with instructors to make sure all digital materials are accessible. The campus also has more material to help instructors on accommodations than any other campus in the country. Our online resources for instructors and guidance is extraordinary. And all of that has come about in the last 6 years. And it will continue to go on. But this is one of my priorities, is to improve the lives of students by supporting instructors so they can support. And I'm really committed to this. So thank you for the question. And I'm going to hand it over to Fab to talk about the other aspect. Thank you. So the other thing I'll add is that we have been working with our CFO, our Chief Financial Officer, and Vice President of Finance. We met last week to talk about one of the things I talked about specifically was facility funding and making sure that. So, long story short, about 8 years ago, we worked with the CFO to synthesize a model for why things cost what they cost and what trigger points will be put in so that we don't have to go back and forth. Anytime there is an increase in cost. As you mentioned, the numbers have grown significantly in the last 7-8 years for a lot of reasons. We want to make sure that from the campus perspective, that investment remains and remains strong. And then where we go find other funding to support the other needs, we do that and find other funding sources. So it is a major priority. I'll say we have more champions on the cabinet than I've ever seen. Steve Sutton co-chaired the system-wide disability committee. And they came up with a lot of recommendations, a lot of work. There's a lot of knowledge. Legal counsel David has been from day one, a champion, so. It's good to see that it's not just one or two cabinet members really advocating for this movie, it's a lot of us, so we put a long way.
We're running out of time. We're supposed to say to the audience, which is else. Yeah, go ahead.
Just touch if I could on the physical access issue. So every capital project on the campus, new buildings in particular, we try and make corrections that benefit the whole campus. So a good example of that is the space between the new Creekside renovation, which the students program is, and then the undergraduate academic building, rebuilding all the hardscape in that area so that it's accessible. So all of these projects try to take on a piece of what's a very complicated process here, a project, because the campus has a hill like this, and trying to navigate that steep slope is very complicated. So I could take you through all the projects and show you where they're making incremental positive change. The Berkeley Clean Energy Campus Project, which is going to send pipes all over the campus, also has a component of corrections specific to ADA. So every time we have an opportunity, we try to stretch resources and have the projects do as much as possible. Make campus do it.
All right, I'll take one last one from official, then we have to move on to audience questions. Senator.
Thank you, Chancellor, for letting me speak with us and as well. I did want to ask a very quick question on computer spaces on campus and how your administration plans to add more computer spaces on campus, especially because it will encourage computer students to join organizations on campus to get more RSL involvement for them. And we are committing students that your spaces that are supposed to be allocated for computer students and anchor houses for lockers, but many students don't have access to that. So do you know anything about that? I'll speak to that.
Important question, so the transfer to have access, and what about Roger, there's that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can start with that question, others can chime in. So, I'd like to hear more about not having access to that space, because that's the design, we want that to be not just for your students, but any students who student ability, et cetera. I mean, part of, our challenges, around spaces, we're going to expand space as much as we possibly can. There's new buildings coming up on campus, your students can find space. We've got the undergraduate classroom buildings, we've got open soon, we've got that Creekside building, which Mark just mentioned, we've got the Gateway building, which is opening, the building the residence hall. So I think we're really trending in a positive direction in terms of creating more space for students. And the population, from having worked with college students for a very long time, is that you will find the space when it's built to be able to create community around that space. So that's a very positive thing. But specifically related to anchor house, I'd maybe talk to you more about that, because a big strategy or a big topic of conversation, Oliver, Pat, and I all chair the Transfer Task Force, and Josh was on that task force amongst others, is to expand access, not just in space, but in terms of our philosophy, if you will, in terms of how we address transfer needs. I think we made some positive changes, and that task force is going to wrap up until this year. So the timing is right for us to talk more about.
Great. We'll go ahead and segue to our final section of the evening, which is Q&A submitted through the Google form that's been projected on the screen this evening. So I'll be reading the questions aloud, but just as a clarifier, these were questions submitted by members of the public, and for the sake of time and safety, I will be reading them in the original language. So the first question we have is, considering UC Berkeley claims to be a Black serving institution, what is Berkeley actively doing to make Black students feel safe?
Yeah, so one of the things, way back, so BSI status, National Institution status, California designation, we're one of two UCs that got it, UC Davis was the other one, the other state, PSUs, and then more community colleges. So I want to be clear, and the Chancellor and I noticed I've been meeting with many constituents, stakeholders in our community, from the BSFO, which is the Black Staff and Faculty Organization, to members of the triads, to other folks as well, to make sure that when folks hear BSI status, it's not to say we've arrived and we're done with the work. It's a real reaffirmation that the work matters. And yes, we made some progress in the last 10 years with regards to the village and family Lou and some of the things that are in place, expansion of the teen program. There are a lot of things we've done in the last 10 years and more work has to be done. So, I just want to make sure that when you're all here at BSI, it's not, we're not a finished product. It's just especially in this environment that we're in. You know, finding that we're still gonna do that work, I think that it's still, that we still stand for it, it's part of our principles and our values, is doubly important, and so that's why we applied for the status and then received it, for much of the work that Zakia, Jackson, and the village have been doing over the last 10 years.
All right. We'll move on to our next question. We've got a number of questions about divestment. So this one states, UC has previously divested from fossil fuels with the premises of de-risking, as fossil fuels will not be profitable in the future. Does UC Berkeley believe that a future of investing in genocide and war is a profitable investment? And is this a reflection that UC Berkeley wants?
Thank you. Well, I'll start on this one, and maybe then you could chime in, or it's anybody else that wants to. So Berkeley, when we talk about Berkeley, we normally think about our pension portfolio, for example, and our endowment portfolio, and who's investing that. So the pension and endowment portfolio at the University of California level is managed by a chief investment officer there, and they have their own effectively social impact criteria on when might they divest, under what condition. And when you think about ESG considerations, this sort of thing, environmental, social, and governance issues. And then the Berkeley Endowment Management Company manages a part of Berkeley's endowment, and they similarly have their own investment criteria. The investment criteria around ESG, environmental, social, governance, those were put to the test post October 2023, and the board made the decision. The board overseeing Berkeley Endowment Management Company made the decision that the criteria were not met. Now, the criteria were posted on the website. You could disagree with their criteria, but they judged that the criteria were not met to divest, and so there is a policy. It's posted. And I think if people feel as though the policy isn't right, then maybe that's a place that should get some attention. But that's where the university came down on its investments at the time. I don't know, Ben or David or anybody else want to touch on that. That's where those decisions get made on how those things are invested, and there are boards that are separate from the university that make those decisions.
Right. Our next question submitted is submitted by undergraduate student Elizabeth. And her question is, if your mission is to ensure student safety, when will UC Berkeley campus be affirmed as a sanctuary space for all undocumented and immigrant students who fear of being detained and deported on a public
Did you want to touch on the difference between city and the university?
I can't speak as the university's attorney to political statements, but I can speak to what we do and don't have the ability to legally control and manage. So we are subject to federal law, and we do not have the ability to interfere with immigration enforcement activity by the federal government. Individuals who interfere with immigration enforcement activity can actually be criminally prosecuted, and you probably have seen that the federal government is being aggressive about criminally prosecuting people. What the university does have the power to do, and what it has been the policy of the university to do for a long time, is to not have university police cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. So UCPE doesn't do anything to assist or coordinate with federal immigration enforcement activity. It is impossible for us to, for example, designate space that immigration enforcement can access with a judicially authorized warrant. So, what we do is try to integrate, make sure that our community, understands what the rights of immigrants are. We have, active, education and outreach activities around that, and we also train with staff on what we do. In the event that immigration enforcement activity actually takes place at campus. So that's what we're able to do operationally and legally, and that is what we're doing. That's policy of the university system.
Our next question, an undergraduate student asks, Chancellor Lyons, in your administration, you've emphasized your commitment to global talent. Given the current political climate and the recent CACSIF decision to cut BIO's funding of $705,000 dedicated to maintaining bio advisors, how will you be able to fulfill your promise to fully support global talents that live on campus?
So that number is not a number that's, I'm not disputing the premise of the question, but I would have to see the data, we've had to scale back expense growth across the whole university. We were running deficits, expenses were growing faster than revenues. Whether that was disproportionate cutback, I actually don't know. It doesn't surprise me that there was a cutback. Again, we had cutbacks across. My field is international. It's an area that I'm very interested in. You've heard me say that before. I don't know if there's anybody on the panel that would like to take this one, but I think anyway, Steve, please.
Yeah, if I understood the question correctly, it's referencing the short-term funding that CACSIF has given to Bio. Bio has Berkeley International. Ivor Manuel, the leader, executive director, has come to CACSIF a couple times to talk about ways to bridge this issue. I think there's a solution that is being considered that I can't speak to now because it's in conversation, it's kind of going through the process, but I think there is a resolution that's coming soon, I will say. So from a
restoring.
Yes, well,
So it's a different model.
a different model providing funding for their operations, which I think is will demonstrate institutional commitment to the work and the importance of a global community.
Right, our next question is, an undergraduate student asks, as an institution located on Ohlone land and deeply connected to Ohlone cultural leadership on campus, will UC Berkeley publicly support the federal recognition of Ohlone people as San Jose State has done?
I think this will be something that we would have to discuss with our government relations and tribal affairs. So I don't want to answer incorrectly. I don't have information, but anyway, so we'll definitely take that to them and get back to us on.
Thank you. Our next question is, with L&E, meaning Latinos and Environment, being the fastest growing and only program that provides Latino students with research opportunities, how is the campus ensuring proper funding for critical positions?
Yeah, so with matters of environment, one of the things that so that's connected to the CLSD office, to the LSRC. They've been working on the funding model to maintain their efforts, to grow their efforts. I know there's a UC system-wide effort as well to expect that we receive. We are in constant communication about what that would look like. I also think there's an opportunity to partner with the other STEM programs in Oliver's shop and other programs in our shop as well. So we will look into ways to support those efforts and ways that might make sense.
We're coming to our last couple questions here. Next one is an undergraduate student who asks, Chancellor Lyons mentioned that UC Berkeley prioritizes safety for students. And the question is, what are you doing to ensure that Muslim students feel safe, given that UC Berkeley has been designated a hostile environment for them in the past?
So which students feel safe?
Muslim.
Well, we have a commitment, we have a commitment to make all of our students feel safe, so. You know, we have procedures like OPHE, we have many things that we try to do to reduce discrimination, to reduce harassment, to reduce. I don't know if anybody else would like to chime in. We need to provide that kind of protection and safety for all of our students, absolutely. So if you feel like we've disproportionately underprotected our Muslim students, that report it, let us know, let me know, please work through.
So when we talk about safety, there's multiple aspects of safety, right? So there's physical safety, there's mental and emotional safety. And there's, emotional safety, how those feel a sense of community and inclusion and belonging in the space. And so without knowing exactly what the intended question is, as you've heard, there are ways to report physical safety incidents. The other aspects of safety is more difficult, right? Because there's a limited amount of faculty and staff, employees of the university, who have eyes and ears on what's happening. Not one person can have eyes and ears on everything that's happening. And so that's why climate is so important. And when we talk about safety, there are so many things that contribute to a lack of or feeling of safety and what is and who is ultimately responsible for that. Absolutely, administrators are. The institution is, our systems, our policies need to be directed in a way that maximizes safety. But ultimately, when you're walking on this campus by yourself and something happens, and it might not even report, it might not be something reportable. And this is where it's challenging, is because there are so many things that happen that do not rise to the level of reporting. You can report it. We encourage everything for you not to be the judge of that, but to report it and let the process take place. But it can be frustrating because you know you are harmed, you know your friend was harmed, but there is a lack of accountability measure. Because as you all, as most of you know, and if you don't, hate speech, something that racism, all the isms that we stand against, and it goes against our principles of community, those are aspirational values. Okay? They're not law and they're not policy, and there's a distinction. And so when it does not rise to the level of a policy or legal violation, there can be a lack of accountability, of institutional accountability. So what does that mean? We have to hold each other accountable. So when we talk about inclusivity, for example, in your club, in your organization, what is the climate there? Who's ultimately responsible for that? In your study group, when you form study groups, in your classes, who's forming that? Are you an upstander? Are you a bystander? When you witness something, are you intervening in a way that is also safe for you? So I asked you those questions to say that we are responsible as a campus, as a university, to each other. We sitting up here, we have the ultimate responsibility, right? As leaders of the campus, and so do you all. And so talk to each other, and there are preventative things that we need to keep working on. Okay, education, we need to invest in that. And that's gonna look different and the needs are gonna look different depending on the community. So we're not heterogeneous, thank goodness. And so there's gonna have to be multiple solutions, multiple interventions to raise the level of feeling of safety for everyone.
Claim to be against racism, but you led Team USA on campus.
We're going to conclude with our final question today, and then we'll wrap up. So the Chancellor shared that he and his cabinet are working on building a student life master plan. How are cultural centers being included in this decision? Many of these directors are advocating for the centers to remain in Hurstfield Annex and build upward.
Yeah.
So I had to talk about student life master plan, and I would love an opportunity to come to this group or a subset of this group to talk about the student life master plan. We're scheduled to go meet with the graduate students, I think, in early April, to talk with them about student life master plan. This was something that I worked with actually Mark Fisher and his team, who helped us manage this. We had an outside organization come in and help us look at the student space. And it's a subset or a smaller addition to the campus master plan. So the campus master plan drives campus wide. This is a piece where it looks at the south side, looks at this building, looks at MLK, looks at First Building Annex, Cito Chavez, and other places. Actually, regional is also on this committee as well. To think about, in the future, what kind of space do we need? How can we look at the space we have here and revise it in a way that's gonna support what the life of US students is gonna look like into the next 10, 15 years. And so, this is something that, we spoke widely with students, we had focus groups, we had, one-on-one meetings, it was very inclusive. And many of the students that participated in those conversations have now moved on, they've graduated, right? So now we have new leaders, such as yourselves, in these roles. So, this plan probably, it's time for us to have some additional conversation, kind of make sure that it is completely where it needs to be. So that when we have the resources in the future to be able to invest in these facilities, we can do that in a way that we feel good about, because we've got the right level of involvement, and guidance from your students.
Other than that, I think the underlying concern I heard in the question was that, the cultural centers, they were not be consulted about this. In the conversation that we had over the years, the conversation was that if we get to the state, which is aspirational of having a new, student service building that will be able to support these efforts, the space facility would be better and be more functional. A lot of the communities are asking for performance space and functionally, that does not exist in the current area that we have all the cultural centers at. So it would be a conversation with communities about why that aspirational goal to get there would be a better move. And if there was disagreement about that, then we'd have a conversation about, does it make sense or not?
Thank you very much. All right, so we've run through our time for the evening, so just to kind of give some concluding thoughts, I want to thank everyone for being here and sharing this space. I know these conversations aren't easy, they can be very uncomfortable, but I'm glad that we were able to start a dialogue and get it going. And thank you to all the community members who came out. I think Berkeley is made Berkeley by its passion and its students, so thank you very much for being here, and thank you to the Chancellor and his cabinet for being willing to engage in dialogue. And that'll be our conclusion of the evening. Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to recess? Senator Yang, recess to 10, second by Representative Leonardo, give us. No, sorry. I was kidding. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, see you again, nice to meet you. I'm Steve.
I'm Isha.
Isha, nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you. Also Isha, yeah. Isha with an I, Isha with an E.
Man,
That was well.
took a chance.
I know. I be scared.
He followed her to the stairs.
I know.
Good job, guys.
Man, imagine leaving
And all you. All you.
I got it. I got it down. 5 seconds.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to like the past one?
Yeah.
Like last year?
Last year, honestly, it wasn't as bad. It wasn't like this, honestly.
Maybe let's have the last, bring your seats. Bring your seats. Alright. We're doing our business for the evening, so, our next item on the agenda is the guest announcement from the Daily Cal. So we'll go ahead and get off and go for the juice.
Hello everyone, my name is Ananya and I'm the editor-in-chief of the California, UC Berkeley's student newspaper and the newspaper on record for the city. But I'm here to talk about the student fee. But before we get that, a little bit about the Daily Cal, we, like I mentioned, we're the official student newspaper here, paper of record for the city. We offer news and journalism about UC Berkeley, and the city of Berkeley at no cost. As you all know, journalism is necessary public service for democracy and more specifically our campus and the city. In addition to providing you daily news, we are also a training ground for the next generation of journalists. A lot of our reporters go on to report in major newsrooms from the Times to KQED, etc. And most importantly, we act as an accountability measure for campus and university administration. So kind of the core of the Daily Cal is that we are an independent newsroom, which means that we do not receive any funding from UC Berkeley, the University of California, or the ASUC as like other RSOs do. The reason for this is so that we can fully and transparently cover all three of these bodies without any kind of financial conflict of interest. And that's kind of, the major part of our mission as a newspaper. This means that our central streams of revenue is a current student fee that students at UC Berkeley, graduate and undergraduate, pay that goes towards the Daily Californian. Most recent fee was passed in 2022 and expires in 2027. Our second and third major streams of revenue are advertising and fundraising. The primary point of me being here talking to you today is that the current student fee expires next year. As you can see, it is our main source of revenue, which means that without it, we face the real risk of closure, and that means that UC Berkeley doesn't have a student anymore. That kind of goes to what we're trying to put on the ballot for this great ASUC elections, which is the Save Free Student Press Initiative. It essentially calls for renewal of the student fee with an increased ask to adjust to inflation and just the higher operating costs of running a business, and that includes more expensive printing and distribution, higher business insurance, etc. So the initiative calls for an $8.50 per semester fee and a $4 summer fee, with an escalator of 50 cents per academic year, and it would start in the 2027-2028 academic year. So students have been supporting the Daily Californian for the last 15 years. It was started in 2012 with the Voice Initiative, and then renewed again in 2016, and then in 2022, and that's the current fee. And you can see all these beautiful numbers on the screen, but the point being is that UC Berkeley students have, always supported the paper, and we're asking for that continued support this election cycle. I kind of want to talk a little bit about the financial breakdown just to show how pretty expensive it is to run a business these days. Like I mentioned before, we are completely independent, so from the university, and have a pretty large operating budget between managing our website, our print, and our distribution. Our top three expenses are editorial payroll and scholarships, printing the newspaper, you can see that on Sproul and around campus, and then the distribution of that newspaper. Insurance, that includes business, media, property, as well as medical insurance for our full-time general manager staff that manages our finances. And then there's like miscellaneous costs like payroll processing, website management, etc. And if you're super interested in the numbers, I guess you can come up to me after the meeting and I can talk to you about that. But yeah, it's really expensive to print news, and I'm sure you all have seen the controversy surrounding journalism these days. And to the Daily Californians, it is important that we are a free and independent newsroom, and we can continue that. And yeah, if you're wondering why support the Daily Californian, it's because we've been for 150 years been providing information to UC Berkeley students. Over here I've listed some of our major headlines over just this 1 year. We've had plenty of discussion about all of these things actually this evening, but UC Berkeley shutting down the MCC, we broke that story. Our consistent coverage or ICE protests across the Bay Area, what UC Berkeley, the Berkeley community are doing to protest ICE. We've been having a continued investigation into the Epstein files, and UC Berkeley's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. We've been covering federal crackdowns since the Trump administration, whether that be through research grants or through visa terminations. We also broke the story about UC Berkeley handing over personal information, and that kind of reached national headlines. We have been covering the various labor contract negotiations. I put our coverage of the TPUSA protests and the arrests that were made. We've been consistently following up with that, as well as some of our more investigative and data-driven stories. So we have a large staff, and all of those people are highly committed to providing you guys with information that you need to know about what your campus and what your administration is doing. In addition to that work, what we're really asking is that you help us continue to be financially independent, and continue supporting our online coverage, but also our print issue. We are one of the few print papers still in circulation on the West Coast, on the student side. I mean, we don't charge like the New York Times, but we still print once a week regularly. We also have game day issues that feature how the athletics in the football season, as well as March Madness. We have special ed impact issues that tend to be focused on highlighting certain communities on campus or key issues that students are facing. And as you notice in our financial breakdown, a large part of our budget also goes towards payroll. So that comes to support editors and staff, who honestly put in like 40 hours a week trying to dig through all of these files and come up with stories and for you guys. Making sure that they're compensated for their work is incredibly important. And then lastly, to continue to improve our website to be more accessible. As you know, we do have ads on our website because that is our second stream of revenue. But one of the biggest problems that we were facing as a business is that online advertising is dying, and so we need to figure out alternative ways to replace that money. You'd be supporting that effort as well. That's kind of all I had for you guys today. I know that the resolution to get this to be on the ballot will be approved next week, if I'm not wrong. So if you have any other questions, you can come up to me after this meeting and I can kind of walk you through some specifics about the fee. Yeah, thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you. The one question I had was more so like a recommendation ish. Leading up to like the ballot, I think what I would like to see if I was just like a student would be like, I guess a more in-depth breakdown of like the way the finances are spent now. So like, I don't know, whether it be like a pie chart or whatever, I think that'd be helpful, at least for me. Because like, I support that idea, I think you're saying, but just I guess for the average student. So, I guess the question would be like, are you guys open to that and is something already?
Yeah, no, that's definitely something we're open to, and yeah, the plan is to do like a series of articles and posts, and that is going to be like a breakdown of the specific fee. I believe linked on the referendum is also like a financial narrative that breaks down our expenses from 1995, because I totally agree, it's important for us to also be transparent to the students, so they know exactly what they're paying for. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you for being here and for presenting on this. This is also kind of more a little bit of like a recommendation, I think. But from what I've heard, like from my community, when like discussing daily count stuff, is that it, especially during these times, that it's definitely like a voice for people who don't have one. So I think definitely like emphasizing that, is especially important for certain communities like the international community right now. So maybe promoting that like additionally, because I think that average students from like let's say the United States, California, who can speak out freely on certain issues don't understand how important that is. Thank you.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for that.
Any other questions? That's Mike.
Hi, thank you for being here. I have a question. I'm not sure if this is necessarily applicable to you, but just a lot of concern my community has about the daily count in general. Do you guys have like a process where when you're speaking out for a community on daily count, like you guys are interviewing someone to post something? Is there a process for checking like if this is speaking on behalf of the majority or if this is gonna cause any safety concerns in the community? Because I haven't to be running community statements. And I think what you guys posted was, well, this honestly caused a lot of issues for both the author and the owner community in general.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think that hits two different points. I guess your first question about when it comes to interviewing sources and making sure that they feel safe and okay with them publishing. I mean, part of the 101 is reporting that we really emphasize the daily files, making sure that sources know that they are going to be on a public platform, on the public record, and that, their perspective and opinion is going to be represented. And I think when it comes to, as a student newspaper, through our op-ed and opinion section, which I think is a article that you're referencing, we have people submit their opinions, their stories and perspectives, and that can get platformed through an op-ed or a community submission /column. And we always encourage people to, if they disagree with a point of view, or they feel like an opinion that was presented in our editorial section is incorrect, to always submit a letter to the editor, responding to articles directly, responding to the editorial process directly, or an op-ed themselves do the same, and that can be posted as well.
Is there an email that I can write down?
Yeah, I would email opinion@dailycal.org. You can also just email me directly at editor@dailycal.org. Again, like if you want to do any sort of response to an article, you can submit a letter to the editor. If you want to do more so like platform, your perspective or story, you could do it on that.
Any questions? Great, thank you so much. All right. We'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which is general public comment. This portion of the meeting is dedicated to matters that concern basically each of its members. And individuals who wish to speak may make one general public comment, which may not exceed 2 minutes, and speakers not yield their time at any point. A reminder that this portion of the meeting is dedicated to general matters relating to ASUC. Public comments related to items in the consent calendar or meeting consideration may not be made at this time and are reserved for later in the meeting. The Senate reserves the right to cut off speakers to exceed their allotted time or interrupt speakers during discussing matters on the consent calendar or meeting consideration. And at this time, if you'd like to make a public comment, please make your way to the front and you can come one by one. I'll tell my gavel when you're at 15 seconds left, and feel free to also introduce yourself and your relationship to if you wish. Everyone, you guys hear me? I transferred to Berkeley because of everything campus fights upon. Activism, speaking out, and standing up for injustice. Before coming here, I thought it was beautiful to see how students rally around communities across the world. I admired so deeply how people would protest together, stand in solidarity, and raise their voices for people suffering in other countries. It made me proud to join a place that seemed to care so deeply. A month ago, I went to a protest about what's happening in Iran. Thousands of protesters in Iran are being shot, imprisoned, and even executed by their own government for demanding basic freedom. I showed up expecting to see a massive crowd, the same energy I've seen for so many other global causes on this campus. But when I got here, there was maybe 40 people, all Iranian, and maybe 2 or 3 allies who weren't Iranian. That was the moment I realized something painful. The activism culture I admired so much at Berkeley doesn't extend to Iranian students the way it does for others. Now suddenly, in my classes, everyone has something to say. One student even claimed the war was being exaggerated in the media to distract from the Epstein files. I hear people loudly saying, "No war, no war." People who were completely silent while we were begging others to speak up for months. And it's confusing, because for 2 months we were asking people to care, say something, to stand with us the way they stand with other movements. But the voices only started when the US became involved. All we're asking for is the same solidarity that Berkeley prides itself on, giving it to so many other causes around the world. Because activism shouldn't depend on whose story is trending or when America enters the conversation. If Berkeley truly believes in justice, then Iranian voices shouldn't have to wait for local attention to matter. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello, my name is Lyons. I'm Iranian American, and my story begins long before I was born. I was born in the United States, but my parents left Iran during the Iranian Revolution. They didn't leave because they stopped loving their country. They left because they wanted a safer, freer future for me. They came here with almost nothing, except memories, language, and culture. They shared stories of a homeland filled with poetry, music, family gatherings, and deep history, but also stories of fear, censorship, and restriction after the revolution. They immigrated so I could have opportunities that were no longer guaranteed back home. Freedom to me means being able to return to that homeland and walk the streets of Tehran without fear. It means not having to worry about mortality police watching what women can wear or how they act. Since 1979, women in Iran have been forced to follow strict dress codes. In 2022, the death of Mahsa Amini after being detained by mortality police sparked nationwide protests under the slogan "Women by Freedom." Freedom also means meeting relatives I've only seen through photos and FaceTime. I want to celebrate Nowruz, walk through bazaars, and hear Farsi spoken all around me. Most importantly, freedom means Iranian women being free to choose what they wear, free to speak, and free to live without punishment for simply being themselves. Freedom in Iran means I wouldn't have to choose between my identities. It means I return proudly and openly, not cautiously. So today, I urge you to listen to the stories of your family members, your friends, especially your Iranian friends. Behind every headline is a family. Behind every protest is a daughter, a mother, a student, a friend. I hope that as a community, here at Berkeley, we can stand in solidarity with the Iranian community. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I hope everyone's having a great week. I chose to transfer to Berkeley last fall because I believed it was the best place for me to thrive as a first generation Iranian American and because it celebrates diversity and activism. Being the first person in my family born in the United States, my entire life has been spent hearing the countless stories of them reminiscing about their past in Iran, a place they called home but thought they could never go back to because it transformed overnight during the revolution in 1979. As I grew up, these stories began becoming more and more graphic. One of my cousins shared how every inch of her skin was bleeding due to being whipped and lashed in jail. Her crime? She was simply wearing lipstick and showing some of her hair from her hijab. I can truly go on and on about these stories tonight, and it's devastating that I could. When I entered high school, everyone became activists overnight, but no one spent a second talking about the injustices in Iran, and I understood that unfortunately because it doesn't fit mainstream narratives, it just won't be talked about. But I always assumed that once it hopefully gets brought to the public, everyone will 100% stand up for the people who've been living under the hell of this regime for 47 years. Iran is now finally getting coverage. To my surprise, it's being hijacked by Western voices who simply don't understand Iran and its full history. And unlike any other movement, the strangest thing is happening. The voices of actual Iranians get talked over. Suddenly, students who have never lived under this regime or know anyone who has lived under this regime are explaining our history to us. Suddenly, we're told what we should think about our own country. And I want to say something clearly. Iranians are not stupid. We do not need people in comfortable democracies explaining imperialism or intervention to us as if Iranians have been living inside these forces their whole entire lives. For decades, the Iranian people have endured a regime that controls, tortures, and suffocates one of the oldest civilizations on earth. And yet, when Iranians speak, when Iranians protest, when Iranians celebrate moments of resistance, we're told to quiet down. Those voices belong to the Iranian people. They're real, they're earned, and they deserve to be heard. So I just want to say something tonight that's simple. If you truly, really care about justice, then please listen to the people risking their lives for freedom. Listen to the women fighting for control over their own bodies. Listen to the students protesting in the streets. And please, most importantly, let Iranians speak for themselves and uplift their voices. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Kimia Attar, and I'm the co-president of the Iranian Students Cultural Organization here at CAP. Since December 2025 alone, more than 50,000 people have been killed and over 30,000 others are injured and missing amid escalating state violence. These are not just numbers. These are students, workers, women, and children whose lives were taken for demanding basic freedoms while the clerical regime has actively committed a genocide. For the past 47 years, Iranians have been protesting authoritarian rule. From the student protests of 1999 to the Green Movement of 2009 to the Woman Life Freedom Movement in 2022. What we are witnessing today is the breaking point after generations of repression. Our community recently released a statement with Senator Anna Maria Obnussi to provide context for the moment and to center Iranian voices at this time. Yet in the days since, many of us have been accused of being pro-war, Islamophobic, and labeled as Zionists simply for speaking about the suffering of our own people. This inexcusable gaslighting has been painful for us to experience, on top of all of the other traumatic events that we are in the midst of processing. Let me be clear that standing with the Iranian people against the IRGC's state-sanctioned violence is not a call for war or an endorsement of any government or this at any religion. It is a call for human dignity and a democratic system that has the best interests of its citizens at heart. Right now, Iranian students on this campus are watching all of these events unfold while struggling to contact loved ones because of internet blackouts and communication shutdowns. Many of us are carrying fear and grief while we have to enter our classrooms every single day. This campus has long prided itself on standing with movements for justice around the world. and Iranian students are asking you all for that same solidarity right now. So tonight, I have a direct message to all of you in the community and to the ASUC leadership. Do not ignore Iranian voices when they make you uncomfortable. Do not silence them with labels, and do not look away from a crisis simply because it's complicated. If we truly believe in global justice, then that principle cannot be selective. Stand with Iranian students, amplify our voices, and recognize that behind every headline are families, and they are families just like ours. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We would first like to express our full support for the statement delivered by NMR and ISCO. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And now speaking on behalf of the 5 Iranian undergraduate international students currently enrolled at UC Berkeley, who together constitute the entire Iranian undergraduate international student community on this campus according to Berkeley International Laws, as well as other Iranian American representation. Tonight, we hope to hopefully share what life under the brutal Islamic Republic looks like. It is a reality in which women can be forcibly detained by the morality police for showing their hair, where even children may be confronted or threatened over what they wear, and where friends and classmates are beaten in the streets for expressing dissent. It is a reality in which internet shutdowns prevent families from communicating with one another and with the outside world, where message fails to deliver and information is deliberately restricted. It is also a reality in which students disappear after protests, where prisons with documented torture and sexual violence exist, and where families often speak cautiously, even in private conversations, because they fear their call may be monitored. It is also important to acknowledge the scale of violence used against civilians during protests. In recent years, hundreds of thousands of Iranians have been killed and imprisoned simply for demanding basic freedoms and dignity. They murdered at least 40,000 people on only 2 days, January 8th and January 9th. A number reported by multiple official news outlets. A lot of agencies. Almost anyone we talk to has lost a loved one, yet these realities are often overlooked or minimized in international conversations about Iran. So please be informed. Thank you.
Sorry. At the same time, if we are concerned about violence and instability in the Middle East, it is also important to acknowledge the role the Iranian regime has played across the region. Through its military forces and affiliated groups, it has been involved in conflicts in numerous countries and has contributed to years of instability and violence that has cost many thousands of lives, including in Syria. Ignoring this broader extent presents incomplete understanding of the situation. These experiences are not propaganda, they reflect the lived experience of many Iranians as well. For this reason, many Iranian voices today feel deeply isolated when Iranians express relief at the removal of figures within the regime who have caused immense harm. They are sometimes labeled anti-Iranian or Zionist. Such accusations misrepresent our position and silence the perspectives of those who have directly experienced repression. Criticism of the regime is not criticism of Iran. On the contrary, it reflects care for Iran and commitment to the dignity, safety, and freedom of the Iranian people. Iranians are not naive about the potential consequences or uncertainties that may accompany political change or external intervention. Many understand that change can carry risks and complexities. Nevertheless, there are those who are willing to accept uncertainty if it offers the possibility of endless decades of repression and building a future based on freedom and dignity. It is therefore deeply painful to witness expressions of mourning from leaders responsible for imprisoning families, executing countless Iranians, violently suppressing protesters, and silencing generations of dissent. For many of us, such expressions can feel like a romanticization of the source of our trauma.
We do not expect everyone to share our perspective. However, we respectfully ask that the lived experiences of Iranians not be dismissed, and that the voices of Iranians themselves be heard. Most importantly, we ask that Iranians be allowed to represent and speak for Iranians. When discussing the realities for our country and our people, UC Berkeley has long stood for the principle that students have the right to speak openly about injustice. Tonight, we ask that Iranian students be given the same opportunity to share their experiences and perspectives. Finally, we would like to say that we are grateful to be students at UC Berkeley and proud to contribute to its diverse community. We are sincerely thankful to the American people for welcoming us into this remarkable country. That's it.
For everyone. Over the past week, many voices have spoken about what the Iranian people want and need. Strangely, many of those voices belong to people who have never had to live under Islamic Republic or the Iranians who were fortunate enough to grow up far from it. They speak about Iran from a distance through headlines, history, and ideology, territory. But tonight, some people who were supposed to be here to support Iranian people are ironically silencing the very voices that come directly from Iranians. I have a question. What's your reason? All the questions about Iran were not asked earlier today. I think I questions about Iran and Iranian students. Just because our experiences do not fit into a world view ideology does not make them any less real. Being Iranian is not an abstract concept for us. It's not just a political talk. It's our lives, it's our families, it's our memories. Many of us carry the pain of a country we love, but have watched suffer for decades. Many of us have lost families, friends. I apologize. People behind that are at risk for their safety. When we say we want freedom, dignity, peace for Iranian people, we mean all Iranian people. And if we are truly speaking for the victims of violence and war, then we must have the courage to acknowledge every victim, not just the one that fit our narrative. Human suffering should never be selective. If our outrage depends on who commits the crime rather than crime itself, then we're not standing with the people, you're standing with your ideology. And the Iranian people have already suffered too much to be reduced to someone else's political narrative.
Good evening. I'm Orion. I spent my life in Iran, and I wanted to share something from my childhood. When I was 5, I was under one of the beautiful bridges in Isfahan, a city people often refer to as half of the world. At night, families would gather there and just sing together. There was music, clapping, laughter, people sitting side by side. It was one of those moments where the world just felt alive and warm. And then out of nowhere, everything changed. Security forces rushed in and started beating people. The singing stopped. The laughter vanished. I was 5, so I didn't understand what was happening. I just remember watching fear replace the music. In a single moment, all that light went dark. For a lot of Iranians, that's not some rare dramatic memory. This is their everyday life. Iran was once a place where people could sing in the streets, wear what they wanted, live freely, and in an instant, all of that was ripped away from us. When our freedom was taken, people took to the streets, and they were met with bullets. Thousands of students, mothers, fathers, children, people just like us, lost their lives. Thousands more were thrown behind bars and were executed. And right now, as we stand here in the birthplace of the free speech movement, young Iranian students just like us are putting their lives on the line for the same rights we already have.
So we should support the Not Freedom movement. Thank you.
Hi everyone. I'm gonna share mine and other stories tonight because I want you all to understand something. How exhausting life under the Islamic Republic actually is and what it looks like. It's watching women dragged into vans for showing their hair. It's 9-year-old me being yelled at by the Moroccan police for wearing shorts in 90-degree heat. It's my friends being beaten with batons. It's undelivered WhatsApp messages for days on end. It's students disappearing after protests. It is our cousins being killed on the flight that got shot down by the government. It's prisons where torture and sexual violence are documented realities. It is internet blackouts so the world cannot see what's happening. It is families speaking in code on the phone because they're afraid that someone is listening. It is women's dead bodies being raped before burial so they aren't virgins and will go to hell. What I'm telling you is not propaganda, it is real lived experience under the Islamic Republic of Iran. And I need to say this, it is deeply painful to watch people here grieve Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who imprisoned my cousin, executed our brothers and sisters, beat my aunt and uncle in the state. They started following against journalists and crossed the religion of dissent. When we see that mourning, you are romanticizing the source of our trauma. You don't have to share our relief, but do not mourn our oppressor. Do not reduce our pain to propaganda, and do not mistake our exhaustion for ignorance. UC Berkeley was built on the idea that students have the right to speak about injustice. Tonight, I am asking you to let Iranian students speak about ours without labels. Most importantly, without labels. Without dismissal, and without being told how we are allowed to and how we are supposed to feel. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I stand here as an Iranian student who was born and raised in Iran. And before anything else, I want to begin with something simple. While we are discussing the events happening in Iran tonight, for many of us, this topic is not a headline, it is not a geopolitical debate, it is our lives. Many people ask why some Iranians have called for outside help. The answer is simple, because for decades, people inside Iran have tried other paths. They tried elections, they tried reform, they tried peaceful protesting. Again and again, people took to the streets asking for change. And again, many paid a terrible price. Families lost children, parents buried sons and daughters. Voices asking only to be heard were met with repression. For many Iranians, these are not statistics. They are classmates, their neighbors, and their family. So when Iranians speak about change, about freedom, about intervention or reform, we are not speaking from theory, we are speaking from memory. I understand that many people here have concerns about war, about the suffering that conflict can bring. Those concerns matter. They deserve to be taken seriously. But tonight, I'm asking for something simple. Listen to Iranians. Listen to the people who have lived under the system you're avoiding to talk about. Please do not silence the voices of the ones who have lived it, with dismissing our questions and posting biased opinions and information on a daily column newspaper. Because the future of Iran should never be discussed without hearing from the people of Iran themselves. Thank you.
Everybody, I don't have anything written. I spent half of my life in Iran. I know what it's like to live under the regime. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize what we're dealing with. Do you question or curious why all these people, all these Iranians that know what goes on down there, why the people of Iran are begging for US to intervene? Why are people begging for strikes? They're not stupid. No one ever wants their country to be bombed. No one ever wants their people to be striked. This is what we are forced to. It's just immoral math for us. When our own regime kills over 40,000 our own civilians for protesting, with military around, what do you expect us to do? You guys take grants all the privileges you're given. You have First Amendment rights. You guys know a lot of you guys hate Amendment rights. Iranians don't have that. They cannot fight anything. When you have military around against you, your words don't matter. We are forced to take US strike because that's the only way our people can be free. We live under animals. These are a regime that rape women before they execute them so they can go to hell. In Iran, women are worth 1/3 of a man. Gay people are hanged from cranes. Children are forced into marriage as low as 9 years old. There are apps called Adam Vahava where you can buy brides as low as 9 years old. You can filter the fucking age. This is the people we live under. Do we care that a few strikes are gonna kill few of us? Well, our own government kills us. For us, we rather die by dignity.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm a student at UC Berkeley, obviously, and I'm gonna be reading a statement on behalf of one of my dear friends who cannot speak tonight, share their story. I'm a member of the Baha'i faith, a religious minority originated from Iran, which has been heavily persecuted by the Islamic Republic since day one. Baha'is believe in the oneness of humanity and strive to achieve unity between all religions, race, cultures, and nations. We also believe partisan politics is not conducive to unity, so we avoid it, but despite all our beliefs, Baha'i are heavily persecuted in Iran and are not able to practice their religion. The reason I am here today is because my family and I had to flee legitimate threats for our lives. I lived as a refugee in 3 different countries in refugee camps for over 3.5 years until I was permitted to come to the US. Since the first day this regime took power in Iran, Baha'is were mass executed, buried in mass graves, and tortured. To this day, Baha'i people who look just like me and you get sentenced to years in prison simply for practicing their religion peacefully. We are here on one of the best universities in the world, yet Baha'is are not allowed to enroll in any university in Iran. Today I'm here away from my home, not allowed to go back, heartbroken for all who were killed brutally by the government. But despite all of that, I'm feeling incredibly proud of my country, and I know our future is bright despite all the oppression, misunderstanding, and silence we are facing. I am here as a Baha'i asking you to pay attention to the people of my country and see our pain as your own. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Krista Gray. I'm a junior student here at Cal, and I'm the founder of UC Berkeley's first Women in APAC caucus, which we launched last week on my team and I. And we wanted to spread the word and see if anyone in student government or if you're a leader of a women or APAC organization on campus, APAC stands for Society on Earth. And we focus on women or APAC. And she was invited to join and help shape this caucus in the county. And we're looking for a commitment to help form this community to formalize the caucus this semester. And if any of you are interested, please reach out. Our Instagram is at Cal Law Caucus, and I have flyers, so if you are interested, please come see me and I can give you some. Thank you.
Any other member of the public that would like to get a public comment? Now we're gonna open up a response to general public comment, so every senator will have 2 minutes to respond to any public comment that was given earlier today. But also I just want to tell you and Maria respond to that helps.
Hi everyone, my name is Talia. I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who spoke today, specifically about Iran. I grew up in America. My parents immigrated here from Iran, and this conflict is something that is so personal and deep to me, and to hear your guys' speeches tonight was something truly meaningful to me. And I really hope that each and every one of you here, we all were elected to serve in the ASUC and to uplift student voices. So that is something that I think everyone should really take to heart tonight after hearing everyone's speeches.
And we all have a responsibility and we are given this platform. So I really think it's important that when statements are being made from the ISO presidents and Senator Anna Maria, to see that we uplift those speeches and that we also listen. We are actively here listening to these people, and it was kind of sad to see so many of you guys on your computers. So if you ever want to be more involved and to listen more, I would really think that we should be doing that here. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much to those. And I really hope that you guys all take truly what they said to heart and to learn more about the conflict, to not act like you are the master Iran, like that you own the Khan Academy of Iranian history. Yeah, I'm sorry, you don't. So thank you.
Firstly, I want to take a moment and have you all here stand in solidarity with the Iranian people that have taken time out of their way and make sure that Berkeley leadership and the students and Senate right now understand what they're going through. So please. I literally so think of these Iranian students, a majority of them from Iran. I was born in Iran. I was raised in Iran for most of my childhood. I have very similar experiences to my community. I'm ethnically Armenian, but I was born and raised majority of my childhood in Iran. And it has been such a painful time in our community right now. And I want to give you guys some context as to why. Iranian students right now, where they should be feeling the most uplifted, the most supported, the most encouraged, especially by the #1 public university's leadership and students, are not. Before my statement, there were a lot of senators who posted things that they may have thought the Iranian students want to hear, but it were absolutely not what they wanted to hear and did not feel comfortable, and neither did I. I was very disappointed. A lot of students reached out to me very disappointed, and it was very painful for me when I feel like I have made my position here in Senate clear, and that I'm saying that if you have any questions about the conflicts in Iran, you can come to me, you can ask me questions, you can ask for resources. But instead, my own community and I are sitting here in disappointment as to why Berkeley leadership is doing this, and why other students, thinking that they're supporting the community, are supporting us and they're silencing us in our views. I want you guys to understand that they were pushed to this point to come to Senate because they feel so misrepresented on social media. Anyone staying silent right now is completely, in my opinion, coming off as pro-regime, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting. I don't want to really wrong and get DMs, get comments, get posters with my face on it, with me leaning on money saying I'm anti-Iran when I was born in Iran, and I've been representing the Iranian community. And I think I was dying with me telling his names. It's disgusting. And administration is silent on this, and majority of the ASUC is silent on this. So I want you guys to take the moment and listen to what they said, and please change your narrative if you misunderstand the situation at all. We have a statement posted. You can go read the misinformed people and how much hate we've been getting on social media, and that doesn't count our DMs. Majority of us have family in Iran, and we're risking our safety by speaking up because so many people are misunderstanding the situation in Berkeley. It's disgusting. My last name is on there, but my family is sitting in Iran and they're risking their lives protesting. I'm risking my life speaking up about this. So it's truly, please take a moment to listen. Please don't take every Daily Cow article and think that this is how Iranian people feel. Please don't take any non-Iranian posted right now thinking this is how Iranians feel. I'm getting DMs specifically saying Muslims are mourning the death of a dictator with so many lives on his hands. It's sad. There are senators refusing to repost the statement. There are people refusing to repost the statement. They're non-Iranians commenting hate on that same statement that came from Iranian students, majority of them writing it themselves. So please take a moment to think before you repost something of harmful community on social media. It's harmful, it's hurtful when you are misspeaking and we are mislabeling Iranians. Thank you.
I would like to offer a statement, so before Okay, I would also like to address the question that was asked, and forgive me, I don't know your name, but I just wanted to apologize to see that all, like, we were trying to silence voices when administration was here and purposely not asking questions that were on. I was facilitating not directly and during the 20-minute portion, the question on us was no reflection of the value statement, but I know that that doesn't make any harm or any misrepresentation. You might have felt, there's a back end team filtering through the questions, and my belief is that since Anna Maria asked a question about honorary, that's why I wasn't in the 20-minute section. But I not that explaining that is any excuse, and I'm so sorry. That I feel this means. To represent students, and I'm sorry you felt misrepresented. Sorry you felt misrepresented. That's not the intention. I truly, I'm sorry for getting emotional. I'm sorry that that's. Okay, is anybody else that can want to say? Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next agenda item, which is executive officer reports. So we'll start with President. I want to start off by thanking everyone who came out to the comment this evening. We stand with their community, and thank you, Andrea, for bringing everyone to this space this evening. On behalf of the rest of the executive officers, we'll be waiving our reports this evening. Just we don't feel that this is the right time and space to do that, and we really want to show our solidarity by giving you all the space and time to feel everything that was shared tonight. But when asked, UCB president collaborated with Andrea and ISCO on the statement, so it's one of the largest platforms that we have in the ASUC. So please do your due diligence, read about it. If you have questions, ask Andrea and her community specifically. Do not be complicit. This is our role as elected leadership of this university. So please do your due diligence as elected officials and take the time to stand with communities. But we thank you again for being here this evening, and we all executive officers for your reports. I'll defer to the senators about committee reports. I guess I'll leave it open if any committee has pressing matters they'd like to share with the Senate admin. Also leaving there. There's a consensus we can just wait and reports. I know that there was nominations. Okay. I know there's nominations on the agenda. And we can I will please have open discussion. Would you like to discuss any nominations or resolutions? And now we'll do public comment on the consent calendar and immediate consideration items. So this portion of the meeting is dedicated to public comment on matters on the consent calendar, immediate consideration. Are there any members of the public here for public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll do our second attendance roll call of the night before voting on pending and new business before the Senate. Starting with Senator Anderson. Here. Senator Allred. Not present. Senator Beardsley. Here. Senator Cannon.
Here.
Senator Cho. Here. Transit Representative Di Miguel.
Here.
Senator Golshani.
Here.
Senator Macara.
Here.
Senator Maimon.
Here.
Senator Mendez.
Here.
Senator Nunez Rivera.
Here.
Senator Rodarte. Not present. Senator Santos.
Here.
Senator Scott.
Here.
Senator Solomon.
Here.
Senator Stankovic.
Here.
Senator Beating.
Here.
Senator Benan.
Here.
Senator Tai.
Here.
Senator Schwed.
Here.
Senator Yang.
Here.
All right, at this time, we'll move to our next agenda item, which is pending business on the consent calendar. So yeah.
I motion to move item 8, SR 252669 to immediate consideration.
Transit Representative Miguel moves to move item H to immediate consideration. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Benan. Any objections? All right, seeing here none, that will be reflected. Any other motions before again?
Motion for the consent calendar as amended.
Transit Representative Miguel moves to approve consent calendar as amended. Would you guys like to do roll call vote or just, for second kind of thing? Or wait, okay, second by Senator Yang, any objections? Alright, hearing none. The consent calendar has been approved unanimously. Alright. Now I'll go ahead on to meeting considerations and motion on the floor this time.
I would motion to open informal discussion for 10 minutes.
Trans Representative DeMiguel moves to open informal discussion for 10 minutes. Is there a second by Senator Beardsley, any objections? Seeing and hearing none, discussion.
So thank you, everybody.
If you could use the mic, that would be great, so we can record it.
Cool. Thank you, everybody. I'll try to give the context quickly. I'm more than happy to respond to questions. We already went over this during GovCon. A mistake was we used an outdated version of the Constitution. Essentially, I'll go over the big changes that we amended, which were, and rather than this taking into effect next year, it didn't really make sense given that, for the senator, people running for Senate this year, if we would have had taken effect next year, that means that there would only be 20 spots open. So just logistically speaking, it would still be on the ballot this year, and then sort of an interim term next year, and then it would take into effect 27, 28. So there's that. Other than that, we moved a couple like whereas around, nothing of, too much substance. And I think that was it. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or anything related to the resolution? Okay. I motion to close informal discussion.
Trans Representative DeMiguel moves to close informal discussion, second by Senator Yang, any objections? Is there a motion on the floor?
I motion to approve SR 2526 69.
Trans Representative DeMiguel moves to approve SRs 2569, second by Senator Tai, any objection? Rising and hearing none passes unanimously.
Point of inquiry, was there an amendment that was supposed to be brought through for informal discussion? Because this is a different version of the talks from.
I retract my original motion.
So retracted by Trans Representative DeMiguel. Is there a motion on the floor? So we will take it back vote. And then what's your question?
Okay, I also like informal discussion, so right?
No, we have
Okay.
this, but you can give one.
Okay, point of information, can you?
Parliamentary, can you clarify?
Oh, yeah, can you explain the motion?
Okay, just, I think if you're going to the most formal, which makes sense. Move to first making that we just talked about, so then move to.
Okay, so the version that we edited isn't reflected here, so.
Yeah, I put it on the agenda, like the new one.
The text is amended, but we never amended it here in. Yes, you're voting to make the amendments that are reflected on it.
Okay, so. Correct me if I'm wrong. I motion to approve SR 2526 69 as amended, or with the amendments included. Is that the correct?
So
Okay.
just a point of inquiry for myself as well. So what happened right now is, were the amendments just made on the floor?
Yeah.
Okay, the amendments were like the things that Joshua overviewed?
There's smaller stuff that people want to skim through. I'm more than happy to clarify anything, but it's nothing of like, of substance.
Okay.
Yeah. I can also, give people a few minutes to read through it.
Yeah, is there mics on this side? No. If you're able to feel.
There we go. If I may, the reason we're doing this is twofold. One, we get amendments and comment about 1:30 AM, which is when most of you are for asleep at that point, so we want to make sure those are reflected here. But also just a few things, as I mentioned, to update the new version of the Constitution. and such substantive changes in the formatting that just it wouldn't work how to paste them, so.
So were these amendments made, cause GovCon didn't have editing permission, so that the other changes that GovCon wanted to.
Docs right now is proposing both those amendments and a few new ones, such as mentioned, updating constitution and taking out the whereas clauses. I would probably smile upon a few minutes for them to review it, but it's nothing substantive that GovCon already agreed to or.
Yeah.
I think I'll explain.
ASUC senators did one voting on it, so do anyone have any feelings about taking time to review or moving forward? I was not on anything.
I was for it.
Okay.
Cool. So I motion to approve SR 25-26-69, with all of the amendments.
Okay. As representative Gal move so moves, there's a second. Any guys in your name, any objections? Okay, so hearing that. The resolution said. All right, we're going to move on to new business. First we have SR 25-2670, adopting accessible, transparent, and structured procedures through digital council agreement. That will be done with the governance and general affairs committee. SR 25-2671, assist with affiliate tax will be going to external affairs committee. SR 25-2672, save free student press initiative is going to governance and internal affairs committee. And also external affairs committee as well. SR 25-2673, cost of fund topic and allegations 2 will go into finance committee. SR 25-2674, institutionalizing a consistent resolution template will be going to governance and general affairs committee. SR 25-2675, urging the city work with accountability will be going to external university affairs. All right, at this time, senators will now have brief. But senators will have brief 2 minutes to give updates on their office. We will prefer to proceed or if there was to waive.
I motion to waive all Senate announcements today in solidarity with the Iranian community.
Senator Green moves to waive some announcements for today. Is there a second? Second by Senator Kennedy. Any objections? Seeing hearing then announcements have been waived. We're going to move on to adjournment. So the final roll call will be the Peter President hearing and call starting Senator Lucy. Here. Senator O'Reilly. President Senator Griesling.
Here.
Senator Cannon.
Here.
Senator Cho. Here. Transit Representative Gal.
Here.
Senator O'Connor. Here. Senator Carr.
Here.
Senator Nemo.
Here.
Senator Mendez. Here. Senator Niemeyer. Here. Senator Ruggick. President Senator Sanchez. Here. Senator Scott. Here. Senator Solomon. Here. Senator J.P. Here. Senator Yang.
Here.
Senator John. Here. Senator Time. Here. Senator Joy. Senator Yi. Senator Students. Thank you, Senator Scott. Any questions? Mayor, with me, resume 10:46 p.m. It's okay, man. You don't even want to be. It's okay.